Application installation and configuration. In this lesson, we're going to talk about things you need to consider before installing applications onto your system. So let's go ahead and get started. Before installing an application, there must be some investigation conducted regarding the requirements of the applications that will be installed and to make sure that your system can satisfy those requirements. If your system cannot satisfy the requirements for that application, you may have to upgrade the system. You can find application system requirements on the vendor's website or packaging. Many vendors include something called a system requirements worksheet or specification sheets. Also, you can speak with the vendor directly about the system requirements. Vendors know that under their testing these requirements that their software performed at an optimum level. So you need to meet or exceed those requirements in your system. Now, an important note here, in addition to the vendor requirements, you must take in consideration the other applications that's already installed on your system. You want to ensure that after the software is installed on your system, that it will not deprive the other applications or the operating system of valuable resources. So when you're installing your application or before you're installing your application, there's going to be a list of system requirements that we spoke of. And now some of these system requirements would contain the following. The first you would see would be memory. This is the most common one that you would see. The total RAM that the system need to have in order to run that application successfully. The next you would see would be the CPU. And this would be the processor speed. And this is normally shown in gigahertz. Also, they could include the number of processors as well. One important thing to make note of is the architecture. The architecture is the architecture of your system. Is it a 32-bit or a 64-bit? The architecture is basically the RAM, how much RAM the CPU can access. Now, 32-bit systems are older systems, and they had a limitation of the 4 gigabytes. So that was actually 2 to the 32nd power, or 4 gigabytes of RAM. Our newer systems are 64-bit systems. That's 2 to the 64 power, or theoretically 18 quintillion bytes of RAM. Other things that you need to look for is prerequisites. Sometimes there's specific updates or software that need to be installed before that application is installed on your computer. Sometimes the installation will automatically download these components. It could be the .NET framework from Windows, or it could be the Microsoft SQL Server, again, depending on the application. Display settings is also a common requirement of your applications. The minimum display settings, 10 by 20, 1024 by 768 is the most popular one. Also, you may see video random access memory or VRAM. This is typically related to graphic intensive applications. Also, you may see a licensing component. This may be at the end of the install, or it may be a requirement of the software, especially if there is an external hardware token involved. Some softwares are able to run only if there's a USB present in the system, because that USB contains the type of licenses and the functionality that application will give you once that USB device is installed. Key things to remember about system requirements, is specifically between 32-bit and 64-bit. Now, a 32-bit operating system cannot run on run 64-bit apps, but 64-bit operating system can run 32-bit applications. Also, you want to be aware of your hardware drivers. They're specific to the type of OS version, whether it's a 32-bit or the x86 or 64-bit x64. So you want to make aware of that. Also, one thing you need to be aware of is when you're installing your applications, the operating system specific app installation paths. For 32-bit systems, it's in the slash program files x86, whereas on the 64-bit systems, it's slash program files. So make sure you know your operating system types. Dedicated graphics versus integrated. Again, this is a very important thing when it comes to applications on your system, because your integrated graphics card will be the graphics card that's on the motherboard that's already. Now, however, you want to be aware that that graphics card that's already installed on the motherboard will share system resources, including the RAM. whereas a dedicated graphics card will have its own VRAM. This is more for higher performance, higher end, intense graphic requirements. So, again, depending on the application, you may want to choose a dedicated graphics card. Distribution methods. Sometimes we get our applications through different distribution methods, or we install them in different methods as well. So, physical media, it could be our traditional compact disc format. This is the compact disc or the traditional optical disc format, a CD-ROM or DVD. It could be a downloadable format. It could be we download it from the vendor website, burn it to an optical disc, or put it on a bootable USB, or an ISO. ISO mountable, commonly used with virtual products. You can download, mount, and install it as if it was a virtual optical drive. Other considerations is the impact to the device. The application can affect the overall performance of the system. Again, you want to make sure that you're meet or exceeding the system requirements. Impact to the network. This is something else that you need to take in consideration. Application could generate additional network traffic. If this was a in VRAM video system and it was for cameras, pulling that additional traffic across the network of the video feeds from the cameras could put a higher performance hit on your network. Impact to the operation or the systems of the application servers. It could affect the operation of those. And finally, impact to the business overall. It could impact the business functions like a CRM or ERP system. So you want to make sure again that the application that you're installing don't interfere with those processes. So again, in this lesson, we talked about getting your system ready for application installation and configurations, things to consider, the system requirements and what to look for, the common things in the system requirements, and OS requirements, 32-bit versus 64-bit, distribution methods, and we talked about other considerations for applications as far as impact to the device, the network, operation, and the business. Thank you for joining me for this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson.